Welcome to the Legit Lady Podcast, where we feature women who are nailing it in life. Welcome to the Legit Lady Podcast. This is your host, Julie Federman. Thanks so much for tuning in to where we are creating a platform for impressive women to inspire the world. We're going to start off today's episode, much like our other episodes, and taking a peek at some of the amazing reviews that you've been so kind to leave. And if you haven't already done so, please spend a couple seconds, write a quick review for us on iTunes, on Stitcher, Facebook, anywhere where you can review. And feel free to send us a quick note, and we will do our best to read it on air. So looking at Stitcher today, we're going to take a look at some of these great reviews. Fun and inspiring. I love the diversity of women featured on Legit Lady. Very inspiring. Looking forward to more episodes. We've got Moosey Moose saying, I cannot stop listening. This podcast is so inspirational and features such amazing boss ladies. Keep up the great work. Yeah, we are boss ladies, definitely. And Deb says, definitely worth listening to. Great content and definitely worth listening. Way to go, Julie. Can't wait for more. And we're going to wrap things up with Stanley, who says, too legit to quit. I'm sorry, but I love seeing strong women highlight, compliment, push, and drive other strong women. Julie is a catalyst to amazing movement and change, and I love the fact that she is leading the way. When we talk about be the change you want to see, Julie is a prime example of that. Aw, she has a great career, rock-steady relationships, lots of great friends, and a refreshing perspective of the world around her. Add that with her intellect, hustle, determination, risk-taking, internal motivation, and you have an impressive person. Oh my God, this is in all caps. Impressive person, and I love that she has the platform to share with the world. Oh man, feels like I have a whole fan club here. This is the best. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that, and everyone, please keep them coming. I certainly get a huge kick out of reading these, and it definitely makes my day. And this week's article that caught my eye, the headline is Women Get Worse Paramedic Care in a Heart Attack. Now, it's a WebMD article, although it is based on a study. It's not just for searching for your symptoms, and obviously everything typically comes up like you're dying, right? But anywho, so women get worse paramedic care in a heart attack. Women who call 911 for a possible heart attack may get different treatment from paramedics than men do, a new U.S. study suggests. Researchers found that ambulance crews were less likely to give recommended treatments such as aspirin to women with chest pain. Paramedics were also less likely to turn on their sirens while transporting female patients to the hospital. The reason for the disparities aren't clear, the study authors said, but one possibility is that paramedics are less likely to attribute women's chest pain to a heart attack, said senior researcher Melissa McCarthy. That could definitely be a factor, said McCarthy, a professor of health policy and emergency medicine at George Washington University in Washington. The findings align with what past studies have shown about heart attack care. Women are less likely than men to get certain recommended treatments in a hospital after they're discharged. In fact, differences emerge even before medical professionals are involved. A study published this week found that women with heart attack symptoms often delay calling for help, waiting more than a half hour longer than men on average. So like this whole thing is I don't know if this is shocking. The article continues on and goes into more detail with more statistics about, how recommended therapies and procedures are given and administered way less often to women than men. And it's very interesting to think about why this is. I think many of us have thought of heart attacks to be more prevalent in men, but women do have them too. And especially saying that women wait even longer to call for an ambulance in the first place. I don't know about you, but to me, this sounds a lot like us just being really good at gritting through the pain and telling ourselves that everything is okay. Perhaps it's just bias in medicine. So women historically have been treated differently than men, even with the same sickness, the same illness. We're very often taken less seriously. And maybe it actually goes down to how we articulate and speak about what we're feeling. So perhaps because of all of those years and decades of us just being so passive and socialized to be passive and play through the pain and grit our teeth and hope for the best, maybe we're not actually speaking up and actually saying the right kinds of symptoms in the right kind of way and demanding that we have the time and have the treatment that we deserve. So for me, this article was a great reminder that we need to be very vocal, very clear, very direct, to demand the type of treatment that we need for the sake of our health. Health is so important. It can go in an instant, and we need to be better advocates, not only for those around us, but most importantly, ourselves. With that, this week's guest, talking about a strong, powerful woman. This lady, I met her back in university and I knew that she was just so cool. I really loved her energy. We instantly clicked. But I've been admiring her for years on social media because she doesn't live in the same city anymore. But this girl, not only doesn't she live in the same city as me, she's all over the world. She's the definition of a badass in my book. In fact, this lady flies planes for a living. And you'll hear from her interview with me. She just loves anything that I would probably be totally freaked out to do. She's an adrenaline junkie. She's adventurous. She's so outspoken and amazing. And I had a blast interviewing her. Please give it up for Emilie Gagnon. So, Emilie, we are so happy to have you here today on the podcast before you jet out to fly around the world, I'm sure. But just to go over how things go here on the Legit Lady podcast, we're going to get to know you through 10 main questions. Plenty of questions throughout, and I've jotted down like 20 extra questions because I love to travel. I don't know any pilots except you. So I'm like, this is my time to ask all my weird, random, dorky questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because every once in a while, even though I'm a huge travel fan, every once in a while, I'm a bit of a white knuckle flyer and I'm like, oh no, what's happening? So yeah, I'm going to nerd out on this one. So with that, let's dive in with question one, which is, what advice would you give to your teenage self?
I saw that question at the beginning and I was like, it's always hard to kind of go back in time to give yourself advice because I feel like everything you work towards is always like, you never know what you're expecting. So what kind of advice would have been helpful at the time? It's hard to say, but I think the biggest thing that I would have liked to tell myself is just to not give up. Not that I gave up, but just to know that everything's going to start to feel better and better as you keep progressing through the steps. I think the most stressful thing that I was going through was obviously flight training, and you never feel like you see the finish line. Like you never feel like you see the end. And sometimes it can be so demoralizing when you're like, you see everybody else, they're getting their careers set up and you're still doing your flight training and you're still accumulating debt. And you're like, when is this going to end? Right. So I think just not giving up and continuing to think, you know what, it's going to feel better soon. It's going to feel better soon. And just kind of motoring on. Because I didn't really have that support system. There was no one in my family that was a pilot. I hadn't gone through that experience before. So just being able to have someone on my shoulder be like, don't worry, it's going to get better, I think would have been really kind of motivating and helpful.
And at what age did you start that process of flight training?
It was my second career. Because I think you and I would have met back when I was like massage therapy, I think.
Probably. Yeah. It was like probably 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Time ago.
Yeah. So I think I started my flight training, I was 23 years old. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit older than my peers, but it took me 3 years or so, and then I was finished everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah. Like that is a process.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit of what's involved with that training process of how you become a pilot in the first place?
Yeah. So Most people, there's sort of two options. If someone is kind of looking to start right after high school, they can typically go into a full-time program. So say like a 4-year program, like a degree, like Seneca, or there's one out west where I am. I forget what it's called now, but there's another 4-year program that's out there where you'll finish up with a combination of a degree and all your hours to get your basic private license and commercial license as a pilot. Or the other route, which was the one I did, was just to essentially pay for your own lessons, kind of like pay as you go, cater your schedule based on like how busy you were with your other jobs. So once you're working towards all your hours, it's essentially a combination of ground school stuff. So sitting down with your instructor, learning, the basics, the fundamentals of flying, and then adding your exams that are throughout there, and then doing all your flying lessons. So you'll build up to your first, you'll go solo, you'll get your private license, you'll get your night rating, moving on to your commercial license, then you'll get your instrument rating, which is just to essentially be able to fly based on only your instruments, like no longer looking outside for reference.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then you move on to like your multi-engine rating. So being able to fly aircraft that have more than one engine.
And by rating, it's like, is that like
the endorsement?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the endorsement to say, yes, you're allowed to now fly with those new rules. Let's just call them that.
Cool.
So you kind of make your way towards like your commercial license, your multi and instrument license. And then lastly, some people move on to become instructors, which is the route that I went. Or other people might go up to like northern operators, like doing like medevac, like evacuations in like the northern Ontario or northern Quebec operations, or depending on what's kind of available at the time. Wow. I just decided to instruct because when I started when I got my license and everything, it was 2013, 2014. The industry wasn't what it was at the time, so instructing was like the best route to gain more hours and kind of get paid at the time too. Yeah.
And then you transitioned into being just a commercial pilot.
Yeah. Right? So that term is kind of misleading. Like commercial pilot, quote, essentially. Unquote. Yeah, exactly. So like when you're an instructor, you're still like a commercial pilot, but essentially moving on to like bigger operations, I guess we can call it, where I went to like Africa and I flew down there for a little bit.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's some, I want to get more into all of these things. And that's absolutely incredible. So you used to be a massage therapist before.
Yes.
And then you suddenly transitioned into becoming a pilot.
Yes.
What inspired that transition?
Really good question.
P.S. You're also like a dream girlfriend, or oh my gosh, she can fly around the world and also give bomb ass massages. Amazing. Keep going. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. It's funny. I get asked that all the time. Like, what made the switch? Because it's such a 180 like flip from interest, right? And a lot of people, like, they wanted to be pilots since they were kids. I was not the case. I was more like you. I was more in the mindset of like, I just love traveling. Like whenever we would go traveling with my family, I'd be stoked to just go to the airport. Like that was my favorite part at the beginning. I was like, oh, this is cool, right? And my mom would be super nervous and I'd be like, no, this is my jam. Like I'm excited for this. But really what was happening is I had worked for 2 years as an RMT, just full time. And I really enjoyed the work. I still kept being a massage therapist. But I just knew that I just wanted something more. Like I wanted to kind of do something more badass. I kind of wanted to do something that was kind of like adrenaline, filled in some way. And I love to travel. So I think it was my dad who randomly was like, oh, I met my client's daughter at a dinner and she happened to be a pilot. Like he just randomly said that to me. He's like, have you ever thought about that? And I was like, no. But I am now, right? Like it was just like inception in my mind. And I just kind of went with it. That was like in 2010, I think. And I just went for my intro flight. I did a bunch of research, went for my introductory like sightseeing flight because I'd never been in a small aircraft before. Right. I'd been in bigger ones, but you don't really get a chance to understand or experience what it would be like to man it like yourself. Mm-hmm. So I did my intro flight. And after that, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sold. Yeah, I could do this.
Like this checks all the boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. I can only imagine. That's amazing. Being able to have that power of, hey, I'm going to fly myself wherever I want to go. is I want to go back to when you were answering the advice to teenage self question. I'm curious, what kept you going through that big, long process of 3 years? Because you mentioned that you didn't have a conventional support system. So what encouraged you
to keep going?
Yeah.
I had my ups and downs, obviously, just like everybody else. Right. I had a really good, like my parents were really good at, continuously kind of keeping me grounded with, you know what, everything that's going to be rewarding is going to take some hard work, like no matter what you end up doing, and you're going to have your ups and downs, like I said. But I think the biggest thing was just understanding that, you've heard the quote of like the journey of 1,000 steps starts with like just one, right? Essentially just kind of knowing that, even though this seems like this huge daunting task, as long as I did one thing every day that kind of kept me going towards that goal. It could be the smallest thing. It could be like, studying for 10 minutes, doesn't matter. But every day, as long as I kind of made my way towards that goal, I knew that looking back, I'd be able to recognize like how far I had traveled. I think it's the same analogy with like hiking or going on really long road trips. It's like you never really see the end, right? Like, say sometimes it takes you 5 hours to get somewhere. You're thinking, oh, holy crap, it's going to take me forever. But, as you're driving, every hour that you're driving, you're slowly getting closer and closer to your goal. And I think it's that mindset that kind of kept me going with that.
That's a great piece of advice for life.
Yeah, right?
Like being able to live and enjoy the journey and the process.
Totally.
As opposed to purely being fixated on the outcome.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I had a lot of instructors who were helping me with that at the time. Like by that point, I was surrounded more with other, I guess we'll call mentors in the industry. And they had all kind of gone through those steps. So when they were kind of reminding me to, again, exactly what you just said, to focus on the journey, not the end result, it was like, okay, how can I make this the most enjoyable process, the entire way through? And I think that's what reminded me, like, okay, let's not rush.
Right.
Like I'm not, it's going to be fun regardless of what ends up happening.
And you mentioned having mentors. And that's incredible. And I think mentorship is a very important thing in every career, in every industry. Can you tell us about how those mentorships came about and if there's any in particular that were really meaningful?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think mentorship is super necessary. I think it's underrated actually as a tool that people can use. Mine just sort of came about naturally just with my coworkers at the time. So when I was working at the airport part-time, because one of my instructors had mentioned to me, you know what, no matter what happens while you're going through this process, try to stay in the industry. So what he meant by that is just pick up a small part-time job so that you would still go to the airport. You'd still be surrounded by pilots. Still be surrounded in that mentality so that if, say, you had to take a 6-month break for financial reasons or injuries, they would at least stay in that environment. So all those other pilots who were still working towards their goals, they sort of kept encouraging one another and kept encouraging me to kind of keep up with the pace, because you kind of compare yourself and you're seeing like, oh shit, like, they're getting their hours, they're still, continuing on with their path. So I may as well just keep up with them. Right. So it was kind of a natural progression for certain mentors, or certain instructors, I should say. But one in particular, was my first instructor who did my private license. His name was Lou, and he was just fantastic for...
I like he just has just a first name.
Yeah, Lou. His name is Lou.
I can just close my eyes and picture that.
He's like so not a social media fan. I actually had tagged him in a picture because turns out we actually ended up flying together at WestJet, like down the line, like years later. It was kind of cool that the industry kind of brings you back with those people that you connect with. So I won't mention his full name just for that.
Sure. Yeah,
but he is Cher, really.
Yeah.
So he was fantastic from the get-go. He really gave me structure. He really, made me focus on the important things. Again, one of the things that he had mentioned was focusing on the journey, not the end result. Making sure that my foundations were really, really strong from the get-go, and just, explaining the importance of seeking out help. So being a pilot is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing where to find information. That's, I think, the biggest thing, a biggest misconception that a lot of students kind of go to. They think, oh, I have to know all these buttons and I have to know every single system and I have to know how all this works and operates. But really, it's a matter of being resourceful. So he really instilled all these fantastic mindsets, I think, from the get-go. And it was amazing to be able to fly with him again, like years later, and be like, holy crap, like it's the same scenario of him being the captain and me being like the student or the first officer, but now we're in, a commercial aircraft. Right. So it was really cool.
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
I can only imagine. I mean, especially being a pilot, you don't know what's going to happen at times in the air. So that mentality shift of knowing what to do in a potential emergency or in a specific situation is likely the best thing you could possibly educate yourself on.
Exactly.
So with that being said, have you ever been in a situation where you were really nervous and or worried? And can you talk about it?
We're talking about aviation, right?
Yeah, aviation. Yeah. We've got other questions for other things, but yeah, specifically in the air.
I think I've thankfully I haven't experienced any major malfunctions or major emergencies or anything. I think
touch wood.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most stressful thing actually was probably when I was an instructor and I was dealing with students, because I think those are the ones that have potentially the most inconsistencies or not the most risk, but you are putting yourself out there with brand new students who don't have much experience. You yourself as an instructor, you don't have much experience. So I did have a situation once where there was just a misunderstanding. And I think, the student was thinking we were simulating something, but when we were practicing simulations, we kind of like verbalized the different motions that we're doing. The student didn't understand that and went to kind of pull the power essentially, and we were just like 400 feet off the ground, so I had to react really quickly.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, when
please don't turn off the power while we're in the air.
Yeah. Ideally don't do that when we're 500 feet above the ground, but you prep yourself for that and it was fine. Like nothing happened, but I think that was like the most nerve-wracking thing I may have experienced flying wise. But yeah, I've been really lucky. I've been really, really lucky. We train really intensely for those kind of things. So I think the day-to-day stuff just becomes like, okay, this feels good. This is my normal. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, okay, you're like ready to expect anything out of the ordinary. Right.
And so what would you share to flyers who get nervous during, say, extreme turbulence or sketchy conditions and things? Because that's me, right? I travel all the time. I just tell myself, I'm like, nope, they know what they're doing. Everything's fine. Everything will work out. It always does. But I'm just like gripping my seat, even though I travel all the time.
Is it the turbulence that bothers you the most?
For me, yes. Yeah. It's just that big decrease in height. Yeah. I just feel it in my gut. Yes. I don't know. And I'm sure other people empathize who are listening
absolutely.
to this.
Oh, absolutely. There's tons of people who are nervous flyers. It happens really, really frequently. I think, one of the biggest like comparisons I can kind of like bring it back to would just be like, just try to visualize like you're kind of driving down a really bumpy road. Like the turbulence is just really, it's kind of hard because we can't visualize air, right? That's the issue. We can't see what's kind of happening around us, but really all it is that the plane is just flying through a mass of really turbulent mixing air. So instead of just having really smooth airflow over the wings, it's really bumpy, right? So it just doesn't create a kind of smooth, even lift. So you're getting those ups and downs that are kind of happening. So yeah, the autopilot's doing kind of all the work and it's just kind of cruising along. So the turbulence is not a big concern, but it's hard to say that to someone who's in the back because you don't have the control. And I think that's the issue is that you don't know what's happening, right? And so it's kind of scary. But yeah, that's kind of how I compare it to. Just think of it as like you're driving down a really bumpy road. And you wouldn't even think twice about it. You just be like, oh, this is kind of a bumpy road. And that's kind of what it is, really. So as far as advice, I would just say, try to just kind of roll with those bumpy waves. But I wouldn't really the turbulence itself is not something to be concerned about. I know it's hard to say.
No, it actually already made me feel so much better. I think it's that fact of not knowing.
Yes. Yeah.
That ambiguity. You're like, I don't know what's happening. And you see the wings of the plane just going up and down. You're like, I really hope this doesn't snap. Anyway.
You know what else too? You can kind of see it as, when you're swimming through water and have you ever been like, you've been in the ocean. Yeah. You've seen like water, like salty water mixed with like less salty water. Right. You've seen how it's like a little little mixing eddies, we call them, I guess. It's the same thing with air mass. Air mass is always mixing and like blending with other masses of air. So that's just what we're flying through.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
great.
You can try to think about that when you're flying again.
That's good. Maybe I'll be drinking less on my next flight. Fantastic. So I have a lot of questions,
Yes.
but let's move on to question 2 for now.
Sure.
Which is, what's your proudest accomplishment?
Ooh. Flying wise, right?
No, anything. No, anything in life.
My proudest accomplishment. I think just how many countries I've traveled to so far. I was kind of looking at your map though. You've got a bunch of them. That's awesome.
I know, but
how
way
many do
more
you
to
have?
come. I have not counted.
Have you counted?
No, I have not counted.
Oh, you should probably have a rundown.
I know. For right now, it's not enough. That's what I say.
Yes.
I've been to a lot of like cities even, but as far
Right.
as countries, it's nowhere near enough.
What you want to do,
Yeah, because I work corporate, so I have to go somewhere like 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And you can't hit that many countries if you want to get a real feel for it.
Yes, for the culture too.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'll give a rough estimate. But how many places have you been to?
I counted. I think I'm at 35 now.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that might be my proudest accomplishment because that's my true biggest passion is flying. Like flying, but like getting to travel and experience different countries. You got to be in your 20s at least there.
I don't know. I feel like I'm around half of where you're at, maybe.
But I like I'm kind of cheating though because like I've done like every single Caribbean country, so I feel like that's like a lot of them that are like all located there. But still,
Yeah.
I think that's my proudest accomplishment is like how many places I've been to so far.
awesome.
Yeah,
And
I love it.
Are there any in particular that have been more memorable for you?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Like I think my latest trip to Croatia was incredible. Like absolutely incredible. I went down for 7 days and it wasn't even during a vacation. It was just like I had 8 days off in a row. And I was like, okay, doing this, going to Croatia.
Wow.
Yeah. And I went with my boyfriend and just the amount of like hiking and like outdoorsy adventures that we did was just incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Highly recommend it. Have you been?
No, not
Okay.
yet. It's on my hit list.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. And where are you going next?
Ooh. I know. I feel like you and I could just get lost in these kind of questions, right? I'm thinking, I've got my scuba diving license.
Of course you do. I'm like, what's next? Did you like skydive on your way here today?
I did skydive in Australia. But
I'm not surprised.
I'm thinking, actually, we're thinking going to Belize for some scuba diving. Yeah, going down there because WestJet does fly there, so it'd be kind of easy to get there. Thinking maybe March, April.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And do you get free flights?
No,
or is it just
misleading.
discounted?
Yeah, it's very discounted, misleading info. Some can be free depending on the company. So we have agreements with different airlines. Obviously, it's not so I don't just get to fly with WestJet. I get to fly with almost every airline. There's not very many that we don't get to fly with, but definitely get some good hookups with other operators.
Wow, that's so neat. And as far as what you've flown, what is the longest flight time that you've ever flown?
I think so I fly the Q400 right now. I'm pretty sure it would have been just like close to a 3-hour flight. They're not, because we do mostly regional routes, they're not the longest. So I would have been maybe, I think if I remember correctly, it might have been like St. John's or like Moncton to, I think one of the East Coast regional cities. I forget which one it would have been, but maybe like Newfoundland to Moncton or Halifax, one of those two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just with really intense winds.
Right.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And do you have a desire to eventually move towards transatlantic? Or not really?
It's a good question. I kind of brainstorm about it. You know, what's funny is I just rediscovered a passion because I started teaching with WestJet. So I'm teaching new hires to get into the aircraft. And I think I really enjoy doing the teaching side of things. So although I may give it a shot, I may try to do transatlantic with the jets. I may just try it just to say, I've tried it just to see if I like it. But I think a part of me truly enjoys kind of giving back. I think I really enjoy being involved in the learning environment. It kind of keeps me sharp as well, really forces me to know my shit because half the time they're asking me stuff and I'm like, you know what? I've got no idea. I will get back to you. And it's just it's a motivating environment. So I think I would potentially kind of stay more towards the training environment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously speaks to your core motivation for what you do. And it seems like you have such a drive to help others and empower others that are going through that process, especially given your own journey getting into this fairly quote unquote late in life in comparison to others. So I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so question 3 is, how do you balance work and life? Probably pretty challenging.
It can, yeah, it was. It definitely was at the beginning that I was working with WestJet. Just the type of work that we're doing, it's regional flying. So we're booked quite a lot. I think there's a couple months there because I started back with WestJet in February of this year. I think there was a couple months where I may have been home maybe 10 nights a month sort of thing, because you're in hotels, you know, depending on where you're doing your layover. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away in the last couple months has truly been to prioritize my hobbies. So I really made an effort to go do more like outdoor activities. So like hiking. I made an effort to like see my girlfriends more often and see my family. I think it was just making those, once I know my schedule for the month, it was like looking at, you know, how could I make sure that I see a certain amount of, you know, time away from that work, as like, because I use a calendar. I use a Google Calendar to like plan out my week. And I like any time that it's like not work related, it's a different color. So I can like look at it in colors. I just like colors.
I love color coding calendars.
It's so helpful good. Because then I can see, okay, well, how does most of my week sort of look? Like, is it all work colors or is it more, you know, hobbies related or like family related type stuff? So
fun color or work color.
Right? Exactly. So, and don't get me wrong, like I obviously enjoy my work, but being able to balance it, I think like when you visually see it, like, oh crap, you know what? I did not spend enough time with my hobbies this week. Gonna try to do it a bit of more of an effort for next week. I think that's visually has helped me a lot using using my calendar.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. Has it ever been challenging to, because I know you're really interested in going to the gym and staying fit and stuff. Yes. So how do you do that when you are on the road so much and just staying in hotels and things?
I think there's a lack there. There's potentially a huge opportunity for people to be helping others in that environment. So what I mean by that is there's no coaching, there's no guides, there's no information for people who are like on layovers all the time. It's super challenging. You're exhausted. So for me, I think I've been lucky enough that it has been such a habit in my life that it's natural for me to want to keep kind of moving around and like just trying to be active. So I pack my clothes, I pack my gym stuff, right? And I bring it with me. I've looked up ahead of time, like, you know, I have a Good Life membership and it's good for all around Canada, which is really awesome because if I just look up ahead of time, like, okay, is my gym close to the hotel that we're going to lay over? Like, can I walk over there or just, you know, can I Uber or whatever to get there? And I just constantly remind myself like, yeah, I might be tired, but I'll sleep way better. Yeah. And I'll feel way better for the next day if I work out. So it's challenging. I'm not going to lie. Like there are numerous times where I've gone home, or I shouldn't say gone home, but gone to the hotel and I just pass out. And I'm like sleeping from like, 3 p.m. until the next morning sort of thing because you're just exhausted. It is definitely something that I want to get better at. And I want to help others be able to do it as well. Like try to find a way to create structure in their life so that they are able to stay active and healthy. And it doesn't mean to be in the best shape of your life. It just means to just stay healthy while you're on the road.
I keep hearing you say, I want to help others do this and I want to do this. And I really admire that, since in my mind, it seems like the pilot world is still quite male dominated.
Yes.
Right. Can you speak a little bit about your experience being a woman in that type of world? And, has it felt a bit like a boys' club at times, and how you navigated that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And this is like perfect for, the content of this podcast, which is why I was like, yes, absolutely. I'm participating in this. I love being able to kind of, be more involved with women and kind of helping them feeling empowered for sure. So, it has felt like a boys' club in certain ways. I was maybe lucky that I grew up with two brothers. Maybe that kind of helped me to just kind of have that more. I've always been a tomboy, when I was a kid. But as far as challenges, I personally wouldn't say that I've felt like I've had a disadvantage or an advantage in either way. Being a woman in the industry, it obviously comes up with, you know, extra challenges where you have to work a little bit harder because people might not take you as seriously. They might think, oh, you know what, she just got here because she's got a pretty face, or, you know, they might just discredit your talent. So I think most women find that they have to work a little bit harder in some circumstances. Not a bad thing, right? Just kind of makes you better at your craft. But the women who are in the industry, I've found tremendous support. Like, it's always been such similar experiences that we're all sort of here to just really make sure that we're all in this together. And I think there's a bit of a misleading mindset of like, yeah, let's get more women in the industry. And I think it's just a matter of just getting everybody in the industry. I think we just need more pilots in general. So whether that happens to be another woman or a man, you know, get more people in the industry in general. And, you know, if I can show women that it's possible, and if I can show women that it's, you know, maybe they're intimidated, but they can still kind of build their confidence, then awesome. I'll do that. Like, I'll be that leader for people to just kind of make sure that, hey, you know, people get intimidated, say, you know, they think, oh, you know, I have to be fantastic at math. And I'm like, you know what? I almost failed like grade 11 high school math. So trust me, you can get better at those things. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Is that a big thing? Being a pilot, you have to be good at math? I
would say just like mental math to some extent, but nowhere near. Like, I was talking to my brother who's an engineer, and he was talking to me about some math things, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm just not at that level. So no, it's not as much as people think.
Fair enough. Yeah. What's the application of it?
For math?
Yeah. For mental
it's just like awareness of, say, like fuel calculations, like how much fuel you're burning over time, right. Or like your time and distance calculations, like your like general cruising speed, like just the math that you would do. Like, as an example, say if you were trying to go to the grocery store and you were tallying up your order just to get an idea of like how much you're spending, like those kind of like quick, like, you know, calculations in your head, I would say those would be applicable.
Okay. Yeah. Nothing hardcore.
No.
Great. And as far as you being a woman in the industry, has there ever been an experience where perhaps you felt a little bit either hurt or torn down a notch from anyone who's ever, you know, maybe just treated you differently? Because you mentioned, hey, I've had to work harder. So was there a specific instance where that did come up?
I'm trying to think. I think I've been pretty fortunate. You know, I think the challenging thing is when I think the gossip or like the being talked about behind your back, I think that can kind of get to you sometimes, where like, you know, people might have, you know, I would have heard after the fact that like, oh, did you see the new girl? She's doing the flight training. And it's like, why? I don't want to stand out like that. Like, I'd rather just be just another student, right? Like, you know, so I think that sometimes when you hear people talking about you, whether it's positively or negatively, or when you hear that people know about your life when you're not really sharing that kind of information, just that kind of mindset, I think I should say that those experiences were a bit challenging, but I think they were also related to like the environment that I was in. So where I was doing my flight training, it was a bit of a younger crowd, right? So, you know, there's like the high school gossipy mentality. So I haven't experienced that moving onwards at all. It's just been super balanced. And I think it's quite awesome because I get a lot of flight attendants who are, you know, interacting with me, and they're like, oh my God, it's so awesome to see you up here. And like, you instantly just become closer with the flight attendants. Whereas I think a lot of times there's, you know, if they see 2 male pilots and 2 female flight attendants, there's like a disconnect where I'm all like, yeah, let's everybody get along, right? Like, it's just more of, there's like a bit more cohesion. So I've been okay. I've been okay with my experience as a woman in the industry so far. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And you strike me as someone who's a resilient badass too. So I'm unsurprised by that. Not to say you haven't had your own challenges through the whole experience. And I don't know how you feel about this, but I would love for people to stop using the term female pilot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, you are a pilot.
Yes. And I think the background of like where that was coming from was well intended. I think the idea was like, just try to get, again, more women in the industry. Totally. Sure. But I think now people might be using it as like a way to like stand out, or like a way to like differentiate themselves, when really, like you said, we're literally trained to do the exact same thing. You know, you would have no idea if we weren't speaking on the PA, like making an announcement, and you didn't see us at the front, you'd have no idea if it's a man or a woman up front, right? So I agree with you. Yeah. That term of female pilot, not necessarily as empowering as some people might think. And again, and sometimes, you know, I get comments from passengers who come up like, oh, it's so nice to see a woman up front. And it's like, I know where they're coming from. I know they're doing it from a sense of they're coming from, I think, from support, but it also feels slightly like I'm no different. Like there's no difference between myself and you know, another first officer. So it's challenging to navigate that. Yeah, for sure.
Agreed. I've heard a lot of conversations even in like the comedy world, female comedians versus comedians. It's like, well, they're all actually comedians, right? And saying female comedian, paints a different picture, paints them in a different room, right? So I had a similar thought process when I was prepping for this interview. Yeah,
it's absolutely the same thing. Yeah, it's actually interesting that you're able to kind of sympathize with that, just because with your experience of like you're doing improv, right?
Yeah. Well, I've done lots of things, but yeah, I've taught improv in the past, and I've done a lot of artistic things. But even being a woman in the tech industry, and that's where I am currently, that is something that is sometimes kind of weird. Luckily, my specific company, they're pretty good at having gender balance, but in the industry, that's not necessarily the case. And so sometimes being a woman in particular situations, people think of you in a different way. They come to the situation with a different set of expectations about you already.
Yep.
And so thus the podcast, right? Hashtag education.
Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for educating us on that. That was really helpful. So moving on to question 4.
Yes.
Can you tell us about a difficult moment in your life?
Ooh.
Not necessarily aviation.
Yeah. I was never sure. I'm like, does she want me to keep going on one area? But, I mean, there's been a lot, of course. I think one of the most challenging things, and it actually kind of shaped me to motivate myself to become a pilot. When I was younger, one of my best friends passed away, and she was in a group. There was a group of us. We were 18 at the time, and I think, you know, dealing with those kinds of emotions, like you're not prepped for something like that, right? Like you just don't know how to kind of navigate the world after that kind of happens. But, you know, and I had severe depression at the time, and, you know, I was dealing with a lot of mental health issues, and something that I very much advocate nowadays, to just really making sure that mental health is a huge priority in my life, because I know that it makes me feel better nowadays. But I think when she had passed away, it took me a while to, you know, I was becoming a massage therapist at the time too. And I think when I started to recognize that I wasn't living the life that I kind of wanted, it really reminded me like, hey, you know what? If Elena was around, she would have just, you know, kicked my ass and been like, hey, you're not enjoying this. Go out there and do something that you're truly going to enjoy, and look back and be proud of. So that was a really challenging time prior to getting to that, you know, awareness or that self motivation that came from it. But when she had passed away, obviously was ridiculously hard to kind of go through. And thankfully, one of my best friend to this day was in that same group of friends. So she, you know, her and I grew insanely close from that experience, and just, you know, going through life together. But yeah, I think that probably was the most challenging thing that happened in my life for sure.
I couldn't begin to think about how that feels. The slight silver lining in loss is that realization that you shared of being able to think about your life in a different way.
Absolutely.
And think about what is worthwhile, why and what level of energy you're investing in others.
Absolutely.
And what fulfillment are you receiving from it?
Absolutely. And not wanting to waste time on what, like exactly what you said, like, you know what, I'm not getting fulfilled from doing this full time. I want something more. I can't waste my life. I can't sit. I literally would get to a point where I'm like, I can't sit here and do this, because I just look at it and like, what if Elena, you know, what if her and I had been able to still have this conversation, and, you know, I can people can die, it's sad to say, but, you can lose your friends anytime. You could lose your parents, you could lose anybody in life. And I think it's really reminding yourself, like, your life is right now. It's not in a future time. It's happening right here, right now. And it's really about making the best of it. I think that's what really came out of it. So yeah, thank you though.
And that's what I love about how rigorous you are about even your scheduling. You're like, okay, I'm going to schedule time to see these people, spend time with this and do this and this, to make sure that you are making the most out of the time that you have, even though you are leading a very busy, wonderful life. You talked about mental health, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is a space where we talk about mental health a lot, and I'm curious, how have you been able to boost and improve your mental health or cope through difficult times? Because I don't ever see that as a challenge that disappears, because we go through days, times, months, whatever, where we can fall into these periods of feeling a bit low or sometimes worse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gone through those over the last, 12 years, she passed away when she was 18 years old. I'm turning 31 now. So sorry.
No, it's okay. Keep going.
So I think it was just a matter of learning and educating myself and sitting with myself and trying to, I saw a bunch of therapists at the time, and I was dealing with, again, like depression, like I said. And I think it was important for me to recognize that this isn't necessarily something that's going to go away. It's not like this magical, perfect solution that all of a sudden, like, poof, it's just going to disappear. So when I would learn, more about myself and sit with myself and do like self-help books, and as cheesy as they sound, those self-help books really kind of force you to kind of sit with yourself and get uncomfortable with, like, oh yeah, I noticed that I'm doing this unhealthy pattern. Like, what can I do about that? How can I improve? So I think over the years, it's just recognizing, like, oh yeah, you know what? I've been having a shitty last 2 months. What have I been not doing for myself? And it's like, oh, maybe I haven't been as, rigid with like going to the gym, or maybe I haven't been sitting down and spending enough time doing meditations or stretching or spending time with family. So over the years, when you recognize those ups and downs, those ebbs and flows, it's like, okay, how did I get out of that last kind of low period? What did I do to kind of help myself? And so over the years, when you recognize them more and more, you're able to kind of pick up on it way quicker and then implement those self-care tools that you've learned. So I think like some big ones for me is like showing vulnerability, I think is incredibly powerful. So, sharing with other people that you're having a hard time, that you're even just saying like, hey, I'm having a crappy day. Like even just like verbalizing it instead of keeping it inside, I think is incredibly humbling, and I think it brings people together. I love that. Yeah. I think meditation is something that I've gotten back to recently. I used to do it a lot in the last couple of years, and then I had stopped for about 2 years. And now it's back to a practice, and it's just guided meditation. Like I just listen to an app and I just sit there, and it's just about sitting for like, 10, 15 minutes and just taking the time to breathe.
Which app do you use?
I use Calm.
Cool.
Calm. It's a not subscribe, but it's a paid app. There's tons of free stuff that you can use online. I just like the interface of that one in particular. So doing meditation, going to the gym, eating, lots of veggies, drinking a lot of water, eating healthy fats. It's again, all those small steps to take towards having a more robust support system for yourself. And then again, including your community to help you even more. So family members, significant others, siblings, etc. Yeah.
I really enjoyed what you just shared about, hey, the tools in your toolkit to be able to get you out of a difficult time or in a dark space. And I think equally important is to also understand what those triggers are to get you into that space in the first place. Absolutely. If there's patterns that you tend to find, those are things I've recognized in myself. Like, hey, you know what? When I spend time around certain people, I tend to spiral into this type of dark place. Or if I, put myself in this kind of position, or hell, even if I don't sleep or eat enough, and then I go do this type of thing, I know I'm setting myself up to have a bad time. That can sometimes continue down into a crappy path. So I would say both are equally important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's something I didn't really touch on, but I think you're absolutely right. I think recognizing the triggers and what kind of makes you vulnerable, I think is really important too, because then you can obviously be more empowered to, if you can't avoid them, at least be recognizing like, hey, there's a potential, you know, that I might feel kind of crappy. Or if you can't avoid them, then at least again, make you kind of stronger and kind of keeping to your own path or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I also love what you said about being uncomfortable with yourself in a bit of silence and self-reflection.
Yes.
We suck at that. We are really bad, right? We love to overschedule ourselves and just throw ourselves into our work, into hobbies, into partying, into being around other people, or into other people's problems. So even projecting our problems onto other people, and that becomes a lovely spiral. But what you said, I just wanted to come back to because it's so important just to be able to sit and deal with your own shit.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's sitting with your own shit. That's exactly it. It's exactly it.
I wonder if that's going to be our podcast
right? Just sit with your own shit. Like, just deal with it, right? It's so true, though. It's so true. And it's so funny because I think getting uncomfortable we're so fearful of that for so many things. And I think one of the things that's made me better at the mental discomfort, we'll call it, has been the physical discomfort from from gymming. I swear, like just being able to push myself through like the soreness of the next day and like still going to the gym. It's like, you know what? Yeah, this is shitty. I'm super uncomfortable. I can hardly even sit. Like I need help to go and use a washroom, but pushing through that just makes you like, oh yeah, I feel so much better. So I think that sitting with discomfort with like the mental aspect of things is just as, if not more important, but I still suck at it. I'm still getting better. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have never thought about it in that way, but as you talk about it, I totally see myself with that. Like that was me on like Tuesday, Wednesday. I couldn't walk from doing a leg day at the gym. Yeah. And your confidence goes up because you're like, no, but I'm getting so much stronger as a result.
Yes. Yeah. And you feel like a badass. You're like, I'm sore. Yeah, I'm still going to go.
Yeah. Oh, I could crush skulls with these things. It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. I'm taking all my groceries up in one trip. Like,
check. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes.
Question 5 is who or what inspires you the most?
Oh my goodness. That's so hard. Who or what inspires me the most? I was sitting and looking at this question when I was coming over here on the subway and I was like, I don't know. I think one person that I recognized in the last couple of years, though, has definitely been my mom, who's definitely motivated me. She was very much a businesswoman, and I didn't, like, her and I definitely had some really rough times coming up. We're complete opposites, like I'm like super tomboy, outdoorsy, like throw me in nature, I'll survive sort of mindset. And she's like Martha Stewart, like, you know, let's decorate and cook and all that stuff. And I don't disrespect that whatsoever. It's just, we had such a hard time connecting. But I think when just over the last couple of years, I've, you know, grown obviously and matured, and I look back and I'm like, wait, holy crap. This woman has given me everything. And just her being a businesswoman and having gone back to her career after giving birth to myself and my 2 brothers and just being like, nope, this is really important for me. Like, I need to get back to work, and this is where I'm driven and I have my passion. I see so many of those skills in myself. So I think she really has inspired me way more than I even realized. And I'm only recognizing that nowadays. I think she did motivate me a lot. I just, because we had such a hard time connecting, I didn't really put the 2 together. So definitely my mom. Same with my dad, same thing, kind of a business guy and always been really career driven. And yeah, I think it's just been my parents, and then just really wanting to motivate myself, like trying to develop that skill so that I could rely on myself. I think that's been really important too.
That's huge. I think being able to be independent in as many ways as you can, even if you are in a loving, wonderful relationship and have a family, is critically important. I think where the trouble comes in is when you lose your identity and sense of self-worth. just trying to please another person.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not to say you can't love other people wholeheartedly, but there's a distinction in there. And what you shared about your experience with your mom, that is such a common thing. That's something I went through.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wasn't super close with my mom growing up, and it wasn't until adulthood that I was able to appreciate a lot of these things. And she came into my life, and we were able to have a very beautiful relationship now. But it was not that way.
What changed it for you?
So in our case, it was when my parents split up.
Okay.
That's when she needed someone for support, and that's when that relationship really started. It was brought on by that as like an event that happened. And so, from there, it's been a really cool experience seeing her actually start to discover and find herself out of that.
Her own.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what really helped to encourage that relationship, and also just even moving out of that house. So when you're in that house, and especially if there's, you grew up maybe in a sense of controlled chaos, and especially if the dynamics weren't the best, I think people tend to act out and not act in their most authentic self because they're unhappy. And so you, as a kid growing up, you start to think of that is how my parent is, because they're unhappy and they're acting out, and you just start to define that as your relationship. When in actuality, you should know that that's not the case. That's not necessarily how they express love. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Or how they express love. They just are hurting right now, and they might not even be aware of that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an interesting kind of parallel. We should hang out more when you're back in Toronto, when you're not flying around the world.
No, but it's really nice that you share that, because I'm not sure about you, but I kind of thought I was like, and not to say that I'm the only one experiencing this, but it's nice to hear that you've also kind of had that similarity. Whereas my best friend, she was always super close to her mom.
Best friends with mom. Yeah. I see all the time.
Like, I never had that. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. Or people are like, posting on Instagram, like, oh, gonna go have breakfast with my mom. And I'm like, I've literally
never done that.
Yeah, I cannot think of a time that I've done that. So it's kind of nice to hear that other people have kind of had that similar feeling. Yeah. So thanks for sharing back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a more common thing than we know, and it's a bit of a stigma because of what you said. Oh, on social media, it's a bit of a trope. It's like, oh, daddy's girl, mama's girl, like, oh, we're best friends, everything's happy, and you don't see the shit behind.
Yes.
Or obviously, if you don't have a great relationship with either of your parents, you typically don't share that on social media. I mean, sometimes you do, but you know what I mean.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's something that's funny that you bring up the social media thing, because I think there is a bit of a shift, though. I'm not sure if you've witnessed it. I think more people, or maybe it's just the type of people that I'm following, but I have noticed that people are trying to be more and more real, quote unquote, or trying to show the shitty times, trying to show what's kind of going on behind the scenes. And I really want to practice getting better at that for sure. Yeah.
It's interesting that you share that. I think in some cases it's authentic, but in other ways it's almost hey, I'm trying to show myself still in a way that's socially acceptable and still bad. Like, I don't think someone would say, hey, I'm at the end of my rope and I'm really considering bad decisions necessarily on social media. They might just say, hey, had a crappy day, missed my bus.
Right.
So I think there's shades of it. And that's not to say there aren't people who are doing it authentically. But I think, to your point, there is more of a conversation happening about not only posting the super glossy happy times out there to your social network. I guess it goes back to people's intentions of why they engage with a social network. If it's just to, have a communication path and to post some highlights, then that person might be less likely to do that. But if someone is documenting their daily life, or if there may be some degree of influencer, then they could. But I think depending on why they're on social media will define how they represent themselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. I really like the way that you kind of brought that, because it is true. And there is a big difference between someone who's doing it just to seem more personable and then be able to sell more stuff, right? Or truly just because, like,
look how real she is.
Yeah, like, oh,
she had a bad day.
Yeah, exactly.
She got a bad haircut.
Yeah. But it's so true. You're absolutely right. So I think it boils down to you just trying to be an educated consumer. I call it consuming nowadays, because it truly is that we're consuming social media. right? Like the information that we're taking in.
Yeah. What I'm seeing more, and again, could be a reflection of the people in my network, are people trying to take social media breaks. So saying, hey, I need to take time off Facebook because it's such a downer, or it's bringing me to a not so great place myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something you've been seeing too.
Some of it, yeah. And or like, you know, when like you're taking trips, there's like, you know, okay, I'm doing this trip, but like I'll document it, but not necessarily post it live.
Yeah.
So document it and then post it after the fact, so that you can enjoy the moment and be present with your partner or whoever you're traveling with, or whatever the case may be. It's a very challenging balance.
It is. No, I completely empathize with you on that one, especially. So when I travel, I'm the person who takes 2,000 pictures on my phone just because it's so beautiful and I want to be able to reflect on it. And I do actually go back through those pictures. But to your point, it is a balance. I try not to post everything in the moment because then you lose the moment.
Yeah.
But I still want to capture it a little bit.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
It's a fine balance. I know. I'm sure some people find that super obnoxious both ways. But anyway.
So true.
Too bad.
Yep.
All right. So next question 6, I believe we're on, is what is the most adventurous thing you have ever done?
Ooh, this is like my jam. This is like the kind of stuff I love.
I want to be like, what is an adventurous thing you have not done? I feel like that's a better question for you.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Flipped into a canyon. No, you've probably done that too.
Recently, it would have been skydiving, maybe. Like when I went to Australia, I went skydiving there. But you know what's the crazy thing is that, have you ever gone skydiving?
No.
Have you? No. You're like, I'm not even close to that.
I like to think of myself as pretty adventurous, but there are certain things like I don't like roller coasters. I don't like things with a big drop. Like I just hate that body sensation. Yeah. That's what people love about it, right?
Exactly. You're like, no way.
It's not for me. I went on the largest wooden roller coaster in the world. It was when I was in Sweden, and that was me, like, quote unquote, facing my fears. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna do it, I might as well go big or go home. Yeah. And I did that, and I'm like, nope, still hate it, never again. Done.
You're like the poster child of like the failed experiment. You're like, yeah, everybody told me it was gonna be better, and you're like, nope, it's actually worse.
No, unsubscribe.
It's funny that you say that, because like, yes, I definitely chase it, obviously. Like that's like the opposite. But you know what's funny is I've gone bungee jumping and done like the skydiving, and bungee jumping was way fucking harder. Pardon my language, but way harder, because I had to physically bring myself to the edge and jump off myself. Whereas when I went skydiving, it was like, okay, here we go. Like I literally have no control, and I'm just like strapped on with one of my friends, Ricky, he's the one that did the jump, and I fully trusted him. And there was like, there's no going back from here. I had a bit of a harder time doing the jump myself, like forcing myself to do the bungee jump. But
would it be better if they pushed you off? I feel like that's not much better. I don't know.
They're like, they just like kick you off the ledge. Like, here you go. This is what you get. Oh my God. Maybe if I just wasn't paying attention, right? But you want to like jump a certain way so you don't get that feeling.
Oh,
there is
really?
a way to do it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. If you bungee jump, like just facing almost like you're doing a belly flop. If you're doing it more in that sense, your stomach doesn't have that same sensation of like the up and down drop. Whereas if you're really like vertical, then you kind of get it more.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I still wanted to like pee myself when I did it. Yeah.
I feel clammy just thinking about it. I'm like,
But that's been really adventurous. And then the other really badass thing that I'm like super pumped about that I've done was I went and did a Euro road trip last summer and did an insane hike in Switzerland. It was badass. And like the last section of it is called Via Ferrata, which is, it just means iron way, I think. And it's just the last portion of the hike is you have to clip yourself in, because it's all metal bars that you have to kind of hike up along the face of the mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then you're looking down, you're like, all right, cool.
Yeah, no turning back now.
Yeah. And it was amazing at the peak of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long was that hike?
Oh, it's just for the day. So I think in total it probably took us, I think we did 6.5 or 7 hours, I think, for the whole thing.
Only 7 hours. Casual.
But it was like, I think the peak of it was like 10,000 feet, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Oh my gosh. I haven't done anything that cool yet, but did do the Nepali coast in Kauai.
So beautiful.
Beautiful. Did you do that too?
I haven't done it, but I've been to Hawaii and I know the Nepali coast. It's gorgeous.
You should do it because it's like you hike halfway to get to this gorgeous secluded silver sand beach.
Amazing.
And so some people just do that and then they come back, especially if they have kids or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit more of an approachable hike.
Okay.
And then the second half of it is a little off the beaten path. Like you have some of the markers.
Okay.
But I found myself like on my knees and hands crawling up, muddied areas and things like that. And you actually get to this beautiful secluded giant waterfall at the end of it.
Oh my gosh.
So it's beautiful. I highly recommend it.
Oh yeah. I definitely want to go back to Hawaii because there's a bunch of hikes there.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. The elevation change with the volcanoes there is pretty wicked. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's magical. It's really magical. The vegetation there would change every kilometer or so, and you just feel like you're in Jurassic Park or different worlds in a video game. You're like, oh, now we're in this one. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Now this is the wetlands, and this is the bamboo forest, and now we're somewhere else.
I love it.
Oh, but that's so cool. Oh man. Yeah, we have to exchange more travel stories outside of this.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. All right, question 7 is, what do you attribute your success to?
Ooh, what is success? Ooh.
Well, so it was funny because when I asked you to do this podcast, you were like, who, me, really? And I'm like, yes, you fly planes for a living. That is really impressive. You are super successful. You are educating others. You are a literal trailblazer. So yes, you are successful.
Yes. No, I like I'm just being a devil's advocate because I like that question and I like breaking down this idea of what success is, because I think it's cool to have a different idea of what success means for different people. Because, some people might go automatically to financial success, and some people might, again, my success might be, again, that I've traveled around to all these different countries. But personally, my success, I attribute it to happiness, daily kind of joy and happiness in my life that I try to go back to. I think that's really, really important. And I am experiencing that, right? And I do have that as my motivator. So what attributes to that, or how would I say I kind of gain that? I'd say really forcing myself to get uncomfortable and believing in myself that I would be able to achieve my goals. I think that was the kind of just putting your head down and being like, yo, you know what? I don't want to live the normal life. I don't want to just be part of the status quo. I just really want to push myself and be that, have a different life, because I don't want the normal thing. So what do I attribute that success to is, getting uncomfortable, and you know what? Not being afraid of being different, because I think standing out is terrifying for a lot of people, and still terrifying for me in a lot of ways. But being different and wanting different things and going about it different ways, I think really is what has given me the success that I kind of have to this day. Yeah.
I think we have the same life motto of getting uncomfortable, because that's actually mine that I have and holds in my heart. So I'm sitting here smiling as you're talking about this. I'm like, she's in my brain. This is great.
And you could say the same for your success, just getting out there and just being an improv, and like you said, being a comedian and being involved in that, I think is, for me, that would be insanely terrifying, right? Whereas for you, you're like, I do it all the time. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, side note, I am not a comedian. I wish I am not that cool. But yes, I agree. I mean, even doing this podcast, even doing the things I do in my business life, lots of different things. I take a leap to make myself uncomfortable on purpose. Yeah. I mean, this podcast is something that is not hey, I woke up being oh, I'm really good at this. Let's do this. It's no, this is new. This is something different. And it's certainly a hopefully intelligent risk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's bold and italicized. Hopefully intelligent, which is great. So I appreciate that. I love what you said about looking to find happiness in something every single day.
Yes.
What are some examples of that?
I think, so I try, daily I write in, it's called a 5-minute gratitude? No, 5-minute journal? Yeah, 5-minute journal.
Okay.
And it's just a gratitude journal, really. Oh. So it kind of forces you. So every morning you wake up and you think of 3 things that you're grateful for. So for me, something that gives me joy is oh, I slept in a comfortable bed. The simplest things oh, you know what? I got a good night's sleep. Or last night I spent quality time with my brothers. I saw my family. There's my family cat, Max. I got to spend time with him.
Aww, Max.
Right? Right, Maximus, right? Got really good conversation with my boyfriend, really, mind-opening conversation with him, or I was able to bond with, my best friend, or like just honestly like the simplest things, or I had a good workout. I feel like I ate really healthy today because I feel energized, or like just the simplest things are truly what I try to focus on, because at the end of the day, those are the things that truly give me that happiness. It's not getting 2,000 likes on a picture. It's not, it's not those other things that might be a gauge of success for other people. That doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of being able to actually mindfully practice gratitude every single day.
So important.
I've tried those journals, and then I just fall off really quickly.
Have you tried the 5-minute journal?
I've tried something similar to that. Like it's like a couple of questions or something.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not the best at keeping to that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm running around like a chicken with a head cut off. So that's probably why I need it.
Yeah. What's funny is I was doing a meditation about gratitude, and it's not about just writing in the journal. Even if you took 5 minutes when you're laying down, but just like verbalizing it in your head, 5 things that you're grateful for, it would just be just as efficient, right? So you could sit there and be like, okay, yeah, today, some gentleman off the street gave me a compliment, or like, just random like little things. Yeah. It makes you really, it shifts your perspective around for sure.
It's an important reminder. I go through phases myself.
Yeah.
Some days I'm really good at it, and other days I'm not.
Yeah.
So
and you fall off the drive. Oh my God. I do it all the time too. Trust me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's everybody's homework is to spend 5 minutes. Yeah. Think about 3 things. 3 things. Let's say
start
3
with
things.
3.
3 is more reasonable. Yeah. 3 things that you're grateful for.
Yes, absolutely.
Boom. You're listening to this, so you have no choice not to. All right. Question 8. What item or items could you never live without?
Oh my gosh. My phone. As sad as that is to say, I feel like my phone is pictures too. So I'm not just talking about like social media or, but it's keeping in contact, because my life has become so all over the place. Like when I was traveling, when I was living in Africa, when I was in Europe, like your phone is what keeps you connected with the people that you care most about. And I think that's really, really important. My parents are huge travelers as well. So they're always like, they were taking more trips than I was at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, who's the pilot here? Like what's going on? So it's really important, we would have, WhatsApp conversations. Like we have a group chat with my whole family in it, and they're just sending me pictures from them traveling around the world. And, we're 12 hours time zone differences or whatever, but that's our mean of communication. Whereas before, when they were traveling, like we literally wouldn't speak to them for a week. And that's like, I'm okay with that kind of distance. That's fine. I can handle it. But I love hearing how they're doing. Like I love sharing with them what they're going through. So I think that's truly important. And, being able to connect with my boyfriend, or being able to connect with the people that inspire me the most and all that, I think my phone is truly important for that. And I keep just like you, keep all my travel pictures on my phone, because it like motivates me for when I'm not traveling to keep working and, for the next thing or whatever. Yeah.
Is there something you tend to like taking more pictures of?
Totally. Like landscape. I'm not a person like a people picture, or like I don't definitely enjoy or go towards like architecture or anything like that. It's way more like the outdoorsy, like cool scenic stuff. Yeah. Whatever I hike. That's what I like. Yeah.
That's amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about your time in Africa, like where you were, how long you were there for?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I was able to only do 1 rotation with my employer at the time. So I was working for a company that did contract work for the United Nations.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I was based out of, I was living in the Congo for 2 months. Yeah. And so just day to day, like we would move military troops around for that mission specifically, where we're in the Congo. So we were living there and just flying the similar type of aircraft that I'm flying now, just like the earlier versions, I guess. So I was flying the Dash 8, but the 300 version, and just flying people and being able to live in Africa and being able to interact with the Congolese. And I was speaking French for 2 months straight, which was wicked.
Wow.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome to be able to practice my French. That experience was insanely humbling. It's funny when people ask me, they're like, oh, was it challenging to go and live there? what was the culture shock like? And I always tell people I actually had a harder time coming back than going there, because going there, you know it's going to be different. You know it's going to hit you. You know there's going to be poverty. You know you're going to see some stuff that you're not necessarily prepared to see. So I think that mindset mentally prepares you, because you're like, okay, I'm going to be seeing some stuff that I'm not used to. Like, I'm going to be open to those experiences and kind of whatever comes my way. But once you've experienced that coming back, I came back last November. So I happened to come back during holiday season and consumerism at its best. And, having come from a place...
That's culture shock.
Right? That's exactly it. So having come from a place where, we're drinking bottled water because we can't drink the tap water because it's not treated there. Having daily power cuts, electrical power cuts, because they don't necessarily have, consistent systems. There is no sanitary, systems for those the Congolese there. And I only got a glimpse of it. Like, I'm only talking about 2 months. And coming from that environment where you're just grateful that you have a bed and that your door locks and that you're safe. When you come back to our North American mentality of consumerism, I was down for a month, almost 2 months. And I even told my family at the time, I was like, for Christmas, guys, like, I'm having a really hard time with this because I don't want to buy anything. There's nothing that could represent, the time that I want to spend with you guys. So can we try to really make sure that we just spend time together? Like, I had it was such a shock. I had such a hard time. Like, everything that I looked at, it was like, it was an advertisement for something that I didn't need. And I was like, how can we be stuck in this world? Like, the excess and the surplus and everything. So the time there, I don't want to just focus on that. I guess I should really kind of be bringing about, how amazing it was just to be in the Congo. But it was definitely the culture shock coming back that hit me the hardest. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And it's actually very refreshing to hear that, because although you literally were helping a UN mission of sorts, right? You're not speaking of it in a savior complex way. It was I am a guest in your home.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I'm expressing extreme mindfulness and gratitude for being there, and you allowing us to be there in something that will ultimately, hopefully help. Like, hopefully, not to get too far down into the politics of it. Like, hopefully, at the grand scale, it was something that was actually helping.
Yes.
But
it was honestly like the Congolese were some of the friendliest people I've ever interacted with. And just, there's obviously security measures that you kind of keep aware of, but I never felt unsafe. I never felt, people were always so worried about me going there. And
because we don't know. It comes out of ignorance.
And it's not just that too, it's them caring and loving you. Right. And I understood that, but then I also kept reminding myself that I don't know what it's going to be like. Like, none of us truly know what it's going to be like until you've actually been there. And once I was like, oh my gosh, this is not only beautiful, it's gorgeous down there. Like, the actual vegetation was just incredible. Like, you're talking about different world. Yeah. The Congo is like the craziest forest and jungle I've ever seen. And you go there and you're like, thank you for letting me experience this. Like, cause it makes you a different person. Like, it truly humbles the heck out of you when you come back. Right. It was so cool. I can't wait to go back. My goal actually is to, cause I thought I would spend more time there.
Right.
I would love to go back, and my goal is I want to do Kilimanjaro in October.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to spend more time in Africa for sure.
Just casually. Yeah, Kilimanjaro. Sure, why not? Just hike that. No big deal. Wow. All right. Question 9. Is there anything you'd like to promote?
Oh, I think this.
No,
I want to promote this.
No, good.
Yeah.
No, any websites, anything that you're engaged in that you want to, anything you want to throw out there. It could be social media, it could be anything whatsoever.
I am working on my own kind of social media. I don't fully know what I'm doing with it, but I have, gathered a bit of a following, and I do want to kind of use it, in some positive way. So I am working on my website. I have it kind of pulled up. I've got my domain and hosting and everything sorted out.
Is it ready for prime time yet?
No, it's not yet.
Do you know what it will be? Like, can you share it ahead of time?
I would love to have it kind of ready for the new year.
Okay.
Yeah, 2019 would be like kind of a launch. So love to have my YouTube channel up by then. And my YouTube is just going to be really focused on kind of like day-to-day stuff with like my flying and really just like adventurous stuff. So like more so my travels and my hikes and like just cool stuff that I get to do, because I want to share that with people and I want to share what's possible. Because I think a lot of people get this crazy idea that traveling is challenging and difficult, but I'm sure you can attest to the fact that if you focus on it as a priority, you can absolutely do it. It's way more accessible than people realize. And I want to share that with others.
Do you mean more financially or more
in general?
In general. Okay.
Yeah, financially for sure. Yeah, definitely. And obviously, you know, I have some perks. I'm not going to ignore that side of things, but I think it is still something that's very much it can be a priority for other people. And I want to share what's possible.
Yep.
You know, maybe people don't necessarily just want to go to the cities. Maybe they do want to do some crazy cool hiking, and I can kind of show them what's possible or what I've experienced. So I would love to focus on that. And who knows where my YouTube and my website will go. My website will be mostly like blogging and sharing kind of pictures and my day-to-day life. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So our listeners can find it if they just Google your name kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll be probably the website will be www.pilotemilie.com when it gets released. Yeah.
I love that. Pilot Emilie. Boom. I love it. That's so cool. Very, very cool. I had a few additional questions that I wanted to throw in before we get to our last official one.
Yes.
One is it's kind of dumb, but I was talking to my partner Manny about this morning, and it was throwback to your RMT days.
Yes.
How do RMTs feel about really hairy people?
It's so funny that you say that.
I know it's
everybody
a dumb question.
No, but you know what? Everybody asks me.
Really?
You know what's the funniest is women. Women are the worst. They always come and tell me, "I'm sorry I didn't shave today," and I'm like, girl, I massage fully grown men. Like your like stubble is not going to be bothering me. Trust me.
I did the exact same thing this week.
Did you
literally
actually?
did. Yeah, I have a shoulder issue right now.
No.
And so I'm there with like my shoulder out and I'm like looking at my armpit and I'm like, it's not, you know, ready for prime time according to me and societal,
norms.
You know, old school norms. Yeah, exactly. But
no, honestly, do not care. I do not care whatsoever. And you know what's actually funny? Massage therapy has made me so accepting of people's bodies, because I'm like, I feel like I've seen everything. Like I truly do not care. Get comfortable with yourself, you know?
Right. Oh, that's good. So in general, if you're super hairy, RMTs likely don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So when I was doing research, I noticed that you're a first officer.
Yes.
Can you explain very briefly what the flight ranks are?
Yes, what that means. Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit challenging. I think that term actually comes from a nautical background. Yeah. So some people call it co-pilot, first officer. Typically, first officer is the term. So when you come into a flight deck environment, you do have a multi-crew situation happening, right? Because we can't obviously operate that big of a machine on our own. We always have a backup. We always have redundancy and systems in place to help each other. So the ranking sort of works, you know, a captain obviously is the pilot in command, and then you would have the first officer who is the second in command, or essentially the person that's kind of supplementing all of it. That is as far as ranks go. As far as responsibility, once we're airborne, we're sort of seen as the same. So what kind of happens is, depending on what leg of the flight is, you know, maybe we're doing 4 flights in the day, we'll alternate roles for the flights. So for one of my flights, it might be that I'm pilot flying and then the captain is pilot monitoring. And then for the next flight, we'll switch it. So I'll be pilot monitoring and the captain will be pilot flying. So it's the ranking stays the same. So the captain is always the person that's ultimately going to have the decision making and being kind of in charge, but always going back to a crew resource management sort of mindset of always trying to get each other to, or sorry, I should say help each other to, you know, make the best decision for everybody that's on board. So that's the ranking kind of mindset. And then the responsibilities, which was what I mentioned with pilot flying versus pilot monitoring, would just be kind of who's operating the aircraft versus who is doing the radios and, you know, trying to filling out the flight plans and doing the navigation side of things. So I could be, say, the first officer and I'm pilot flying for that leg. So I'm the one that's physically operating the autopilot and flying and taking off and doing all that. And for that leg, the captain would be the pilot monitoring monitoring. So he's doing the radio calls, he's doing the checklists, he's doing the flight planning, etc. And then we'll swap for the next flight.
Oh, okay. I was
Does
going
that
to
make
say,
sense?
like, how do you decide who does what? Is it rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah,
or
we just start
drum
with the
straws?
day. Like it'll just be for the first day, be like, okay, who
Right.
wants to take the first leg? And then we'll just switch it. We'll alternate every time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any pilot or flying myths that you hear all the time that you want to share? I feel like there must be.
Don't clap when we land.
Don't. Oh my God. I love that. That's always bugged me when people clap when we land, because I'm just like, they're doing their job.
Yeah.
Like, you clapping assumes that you're happy that they didn't crash.
Yeah, like you were concerned. I was, which is like, I get it. I feel like people are doing it because they're just pumped and they're nervous and they're like just happy that they're landed, which I get, but we can't hear them. Right? We can't hear you guys back there. So thank you.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't rush to stand up. Like what, right? Like everybody rushes to stand up when the seatbelt sign comes off, but then we just stand in the aisle, but the door's not open. So
what if they can move like 1 inch closer to the door? It saves them a lot of time.
It's worth trying, man. No, but really, actual pilot myths though.
Those are pretty good. I like
Yeah,
those.
okay, we'll keep it at that then.
Cool. Any quick tips for travelers who are trying to fly standby? Because you mentioned you do this all the time.
Yes. Well, hopefully I can make my flight
Fingers
back to
crossed.
Calgary. Yeah. Do you fly standby on occasion?
I think I've tried once, and that was just out of necessity. But I don't typically myself, but I know a lot of people do.
Yeah. So the best piece of advice for standby is don't have any checked baggage. I think that's the best thing. Yeah. It's just keeping only your carry-on. Just because otherwise it's just a little bit more of a cluster, just getting everything mixed up. And be flexible, have option A, B, and C. Especially, if it's domestic regional flying, not worst case Ontario, but if you're flying, say
I love that you say worst case Ontario. I say that too.
Yeah, it's the best. But if you're flying, say overseas, or you're flying to a destination for your travel vacation or whatever the case may be, have option A, B, C, D as like ways of you being able to get to your destination. And then, those are the two biggest tips. Yeah.
Worst case swim.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe have an extra buffer day to come home. Yeah.
Those are good tips. And what extreme conditions have they trained you on, even when you were in school or things like that? Like, as an example, and this is not me being nervous, it's like, as an example, like, what if an engine went out? Yep. Do they talk about these things?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. We train for fires. We train for, engine shutdowns. We train for, and keep in mind, like, my aircraft is a turboprop. So it's a prop driven aircraft, the Q400. So it's not, it's a jet turbine, but there's the prop in the front of it. So it's going to be different than some of the bigger airliners. But we train for any emergency you can kind of think of, gear issues, flap issues, hydraulic loss, electrical, losses, fuel losses, depressurization issues, basically anything that you can think of. We're kind of dealing with it. And we have checklists for everything. We have checklists and emergency items to deal with any of those situations. Yeah. So it really, the best thing that I've learned from those sim sessions, because I swear to God, it's like a fire. It's like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant, like when you're trying to deal with all that. And the best thing that I've learned from it is just to stay calm. Like, just even though your engine is getting shut down, it's like you will not think clearly if you just don't take deep breaths. Like, we even see it in, like, have you ever watched Sully? Did you ever watch No. Did you ever watch you remember what happened on the Hudson River with
yes, where they had to
land on the river. That movie does a pretty good job at like showing kind of what he went through. But just even like listening to numerous different pilots kind of go through emergencies when you're listening to them on the frequency, like when they play the tapes after the fact and you hear them and like they're staying calm. So I'm like, okay, if there was an emergency, I really, really need to stay cool as a cucumber. Yeah, exactly. Because your brain's not going to think right.
Yeah.
That's so great. Hopefully they train us for the shittiest conditions and then we just never have to deal with them.
Yeah. Touch wood. Totally. And last like random question before I round things off to question 10 officially is, What rules do pilots have around substances? Because obviously, being here for the podcast, I'm usually always offering alcohol. Kidding, not kidding.
Yeah.
But obviously, you turned it down because you potentially could be in uniform today. But
Yes.
can you give us at least a high level of what that looks like? And I know, especially with legalization of cannabis, there's probably new rules here that you have to consider.
Yeah. So we follow, obviously, all operators or Canadian operators follow Transport Canada regulations. So those are implemented based on whatever rules that they decide, happens to be, current at the time. So obviously, alcohol being a legal substance, there is limitations with consuming alcohol. And for Transport Canada, I believe it's 12 hours. So 12 hours, from kind of bottle to throttle essentially is kind of like the nickname that we
bottle
use.
To throttle. I like that.
Yeah. So it's essentially kind of like the cutoff prior to. Now, we're not talking about being, plastered 12 hours prior. It's having a drink of alcohol essentially. So if there was kind of heavier drinking, then it's 24 hours before operating, because altitude will affect your blood levels, right? Your blood alcohol levels. So that has been implemented forever. The other new legalization with marijuana being legal now is there is no leeway for pilots. So there is no of using during your time off and then, not using when you're flying. There's just no use whatsoever, even though it is legal. So I'm not sure if that's kind of hitting like a debate with some people. I'm not sure. It's just happened very recently with the legalization and everything.
Yeah.
So that's the new rules that we kind of have to follow. I'm not sure if people are going to fight back about that. I don't know if there's more research being done. I really have no idea. It's just the newest info that we have. Yeah.
Maybe it's because there hasn't been enough research done on how it affects cognition.
Yes, exactly.
X number of hours or days after. I know like a lot of other institutions like police, etc. They've all been struggling to figure out what rules.
Oh, same thing.
Yeah. Like they're trying to figure out like how many hours or how many days, etc. until you can show up. I think some police institutions are like 27 days before. You can't do it between 27 days of you showing up for a shift, so therefore you can't ever technically do it unless you're like kind of unemployed.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's actually really interesting. And I guess for the sake of being a passenger, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You'd like to think that it is technically a recreational substance. So, perhaps similar in the way of alcohol.
Yeah, that's why it's a bit of a challenging, it's an interesting debate. And I was just having this debate just because I like playing devil's advocate of like, how does that kind of work with, why is it that, alcohol being legal, that there's a limitation and it's kind of like a weird like ethical stance with things a little bit there. So it's I think there's just going to be more research. I think there's just going to be more studies and more education. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Agreed. Because even though alcohol can leave your system, your system could then still feel sluggish and tired and all that stuff as well. Like potentially even worse. A day later, etc. Yeah.
And I think it's challenging too, because I think pilots are in a very high workload environment and do turn to, just relaxing and having a drink with coworkers or with their significant other or whatever. So, it's challenging to say, well, what determines your limit of, if you've been drinking heavily versus just one or two drinks, like for the 12-hour rule, say, right? Exactly. So it's kind of up to you to kind of decide that. So I find that interesting. I'm not a huge drinker. I love drinking wine and my scotch and everything, but it makes me feel kind of crappier the next day typically. So I don't typically like to drink that much, but I know some people do. And so I always found that interesting. I would always kind of ask them like, well, how do you know, right? Like, how do you gauge your own limits, I guess we'll say. Yeah. Have
you ever come across or heard of pilots using other types of substances, perhaps to stay awake or things like that?
Coffee.
Yeah, just coffee.
I think the way that we view coffee is like almost like a drug in that sense, right? We're addicted to it for sure. But no other substances that I know of. Yeah.
That's good.
Just coffee.
That's good. I know. I feel like it's sort of a romanticized or old school view of pilots having to stay up for a long period of time. Yeah. So maybe they're doing other like uppers and things like that. No. Like those types of things.
No, I think just because of our like very stringent medical rules and just like we had to get most airlines now, you have to do tests. You have to pass tests to get your your hiring package, I think, to even get your job in the first place. So you wouldn't be able to kind of pass those if you were doing that kind of recreationally. Yeah. Right. And they could test you anytime if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a good thing here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for indulging my fun, dorky questions. So last official question.
Yeah.
Is question 10. What is a lesson you learned the hard way that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Ooh. Okay, I have a good one actually. So there was a time when I was working as an instructor. I was at so I worked full-time teaching at Seneca College, and I'm not going to delve into like the details of essentially what happened, but the premise of the situation was that there was something that was kind of happening that day. I felt it was a little bit unsafe, just to do the environment where we were. It was at dispatch, like where we kind of dispatched the flights for the flight training. A very busy day, really busy with all the students and all the instructors kind of going through. And the person that happened to be in charge at the time, to me, it seemed like wasn't really fully there. I think she had brought her kids. I think they were selling like Girl Guide cookies or something like that. And she was just doing it out of, wanting to, help her community and help her kids. And I think she couldn't, I think her kids couldn't go to, she didn't have a babysitter, or they couldn't go to daycare or something like that. So she was kind of forced, or at least that's what she brought up. She was kind of forced to bring them to the school instead. So my reaction,
she was a student?
She was the instructor that was responsible for kind of everything that was happening that day. You always have like one instructor who's responsible for the operations of the flight training school at the time. So it's by shift. Right. And she happened to be responsible at the time. My reaction out of frustration was to essentially send in a safety report and just say, hey, this is kind of what's happened. And, in my mind, this is kind of unsafe, and there shouldn't be this, children in this environment, just because, what if something happens and people aren't paying attention or whatever. And I did that instead of going and speaking up to her directly. And I think I learned the hard way afterwards that, obviously she was in a shitty situation because of that. I had done it in a way to kind of bring awareness, but unfortunately, she was kind of reprimanded for it. And obviously it wasn't correct, but I think what I learned from that, the shitty thing that came around from that, is that I think that like I caused extra friction that could have been avoided by just me, communicating and saying, hey, this might not be the best circumstance to bring your kids around, right? And I think the hard lesson for me was that, again, I caused friction, I caused, disruption between myself and that other employee, and that caused other rifts between other employees, because then it was like, them versus us sort of mindset. And it just created all this drama that I'm so not a drama person. Like I so did not mean for that to happen. I was truly trying to do it as just trying to raise the safety levels I think that we were having. So that really reminded me the importance of like communication and just kind of discussing it. And I could have just gone up to her and say, hey, I don't think this is safe. I think we should try to like discuss this. And then who knows what would have happened. She could have chosen to listen to my concern, or she could have chosen to keep things as is. But at least I think if I had communicated that, I think I could have prevented down the line rift that I kind of mentioned. So I think that was like the hard thing that I had to learn, because it was uncomfortable afterwards, right? Working with that same person again. Yeah.
I love that example, since you did that with good intent. Yeah. But because sometimes we're either averse to perceived conflict, or we aren't very good at talking to people. It could have been so much easier for you to even gauge how responsible or irresponsible this person was, or whether she was hypothetically a little bit malicious, by having that conversation. You can very easily gauge with her of, hey, this was just a really shitty situation. Total edge case, will likely never ever happen again. Yes. And offer your compassion and support, as opposed to something that can be totally seen as perhaps going around her back and causing her so much extra pain and bullshit. So I love that example, and I love that you have the self-awareness and the maturity to think of, hey man, like I should have done this in perhaps a different way.
Yes, more professional.
Exactly, and express that compassion.
Because it was honestly afterwards, like I saw the amount of hurt that it caused her, and I was like, I was so uncomfortable with that. Like that's the last thing that I wanted. And it's something that really hurt me for a long time. Actually, I was like still feeling guilt and shame and discomfort like a year and a half later. Right. And people were like, let it go, like who cares, it passed. But I was like, that was just not my intention. I think that was the bottom line. I was like, I just feel really shitty. And again, like, you know, now the rift isn't there. And it's not something that bothers me, but I think it's a really good example for myself to be like, oh yeah, like really have to make sure I'm aware of like how my actions are going to affect other people. So in this case, like, okay, could have gone to speak to her instead of going to the next step, which is reporting, making it a safety report or whatever the case.
Yeah. Or even the like professional tattletaling, right?
Yeah. Which is essentially kind of what the safety report was. Actually, but from that, actually something good came out of it because it was, I used so all aviation companies have safety reporting mechanisms to help increase the safety mindset and the safety environment that we're in, just because it's, you know, obviously that's our biggest concern. And one thing that came out of it is that the program was essentially flawed. I did it in a way to remain anonymous because it's a public, not public, sorry. It's a reporting system that everybody has access to, but there's a way of doing it so that only the people that create the system are able to see who reported it. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to learn. So like you can see what was reported, but you don't necessarily see who reported it. But there was essentially a flaw in the system because that person ended up finding out that it was me that had done it. So there was actually a learning point from that, because the people who were in charge at this time recognized, oh crap, the person knew that it was Emilie that did this. So we have to change our system because we want to find a way to ensure that people are feeling safe to report and they are feeling safe and secure in their work environment, that if something was happening that they couldn't feel safe to report to anybody in physical, in person, they could do it in a safe space online. Yeah. So actually something good kind of came out of it at the end. So it's kind of good.
Yeah, exactly. Just to fix the communication system. Because what if it was something more serious?
Totally.
But I love your take home message of it's usually the best protocol to have a conversation with someone directly before escalating it. Yes. So I love
Even
that.
Even though it's uncomfortable.
I know, exactly. Get uncomfortable.
Right?
Amazing. Well, thank you, Emilie, so much for this interview. I learned a ton, and hopefully you all did too. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks so much for being here.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Find us on Facebook at Legit Lady Podcast. That's LEGITLADY Podcast. And on Instagram at Legit Lady Podcast. On Twitter at Legit Lady Pod. That's Legit Lady POD. And please rate and comment on iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcasts. If you love what you hear, share it broadly and proudly. Thanks, everyone.